Hey, it's Rick here, 20mm RPG. And this video is going out to RPG Elite, which I enjoy thoroughly his videos. And I can relate to a lot of stuff that he talks about, but I don't entirely agree with a lot of things that he has recently been saying, but that's okay, because we all game master differently and for different reasons. But one of the things he brings up is the aspect of derailment in his game. And he tries to avoid that in different ways. I have a different way of avoiding derailment. And I have made a little bit of a mind map here for you guys to kind of follow along, and I can kind of keep myself in track of what I'm saying, and so I don't miss any points here. So the one thing I said to him was, if there is actually an illusion of derailment, and the reason why it's an illusion is because you shouldn't have anything for the players to derail in the first place. You shouldn't set things up to create a derailment or a possibility of a derailment. Now, derailment usually means that you have things set on a set path. So this brings me on to what brings players to a point where things get derailed. So first off, players go off the path you set for them. Okay, so this is meaning that you have a path for them to follow. Or the players go on a murder rampage. They become murder hobos. So let's first go on with the players go on a murder rampage kind of idea, or any kind of aspect that kind of relates to that sort of thing. So at session 0, the first thing you need to do is set the tone of your game. You can base it on a movie, like Shauner says. He bases his stuff on an idea concept over a movie. I suggest that with the players as well. Say, hey, what kind of a thing do we want to play? What kind of a setting, background? How do we want to play it? Do we want to be serious? Do we want to have comedy? Do we want to have a mix? Try to figure out how you want that session to play out. Groupthink the main quest idea. So in this aspect here, I mean, get together with the characters, the players who are going to be playing characters, and say, okay, what do you want to do in this world? Is there like an overwhelming evil that is encroaching and you must stop it kind of idea? Or are you a band of adventurers in a starship, and you're going on a mercenary mission? Or is it, are you guys doing a pirating kind of thing? Are you being merchants? Like all these questions come up. So you should go over that in session 0. And then create the characters that you want involved in this. So, and figure out how these characters relate to each other. So that is what session 0 should be all about. Set the tone, groupthink, create the characters, and go over some of the essential rules of the like the game system that you're using and how you want them to role play. Whether or not you want to curb back any out of character talk. You want, I'll go over that later. I'll go over how I kind of get the players set up and And although keep in mind we don't always stay on track on how the play proceeds and stuff. Sometimes there is the occasional questions out of character and stuff like that. But we aren't perfect at what we do, but we're trying to achieve a goal of we want this to all happen a certain way with our play style. So we'll get to that later. I have more notes on that later on here. So let's go to the idea that the players go off the path which you have set for them. Sorry. So this, I want to get into the idea of prepping properly. So you want to be able to prep your session so that there's no railroads or quantum ogres. A railroad is something like you've set them on the path. They're going to do this, then they're going to do this, and then it's going to come to this scene, and then it's going to go ahead and resolve here, or however you're putting it together. I let go of that. I'm not preparing scenes necessarily, and I'm not creating a path. I want the players to do that organically. Quantum ogres, those are set pieces that you have kind of written up, and if they veer off the path and decide to take, say for example, they're in a room with 3 doors, and you only have one you have an ogre as the encounter. You open up any of the 3 doors. Any of the 3 choices are all going to lead to that ogre. That's what the quantum ogre is, okay? So you have an idea for the encounter, and you want them to encounter that encounter no matter what they choose. That is not a good thing for me, in my sessions. And I don't think you should do that at all. The game master should never assume the path of the players. Never do that. I don't. I keep that out of my mind. I know you want to control things. You want to have a certain flow, and I know why you want to do it. We will go into that a little bit later here as we go down this line of thought. Okay, so game master must let go control of certain aspects of the game. So let's go to one side here. The things you should let go, okay, is controlling the player path. Let the players naturally proceed the way they want to. It's not... I'm going to go over what you should be controlling. So you just keep in mind, don't control the player path. That's to them. You have certain things that control where they go in order to stop metagaming or meta moving, but we'll go over those later. Now, unnaturally constraining the group. Sometimes it's good to have the group split up. And you only have the group combined together in order to create that, okay, the encounters that they will be running into will be too strong for them if they separate. And that's coming from that mind think that you need to create everything with a certain fairness in the world. Because if you make things too strong, you're going to defeat the entire party, and there's going to be a lot of crying and whining. Now, I've kind of situated the game style, the gameplay on session 0. You're going to die if certain things happen. I don't. It's like I make the world more real, where yeah, crap is going to happen, and I'm not going to be fair, like as in I'm going to go ahead and make this big bad guy weaker just so that you can defeat him. I want it to all that stuff to occur naturally. If they get defeated by the big bad guy in their encounter, that's how it's going to go. Usually, if they are defeated, most likely they are captured or something like that. So there is some sort of a possibility of them getting out of the situation. Makes that more interesting. If you just kill them outright, it's not that good unless it's a really good, like, unless it's a good death. So there's a bad death and there's good death. So um, think of it that way. Virtual tabletop syndrome. I made this up. Cool, eh? Okay, the syndrome, meaning that I prep because I need maps for everything. Therefore, I need my players to follow a path because of all the map work and setting up all the enemy tokens and stuff. So this relates to a lot of the people that are doing online play with other players from different countries and combining as a group with a virtual tabletop and to play together and enjoy a session. This doesn't really pertain to actual tabletop where you're meeting the players face to face and we're all sitting down at the table and enjoying a session. So this is only about virtual tabletops. My rules for ease of virtual tabletops is as follows. You don't need to use all the features. I did this mistake in the beginning of our Traveler sessions. You can see it on my early ones. If you find it too time consuming to use, avoid using, meaning the features inside the virtual tabletop. Meaning if you find that clicking targeting to different things and clicking them off, otherwise it messes things up. If you find that's being an irritation to your game session, avoid it. Okay, don't use it. Now I found the only thing you really need to use is the character sheets, die roller, image viewing, and that is it. Okay, you don't need to put everything into that virtual tabletop. I don't use the maps anymore. I don't use the grid anymore. And that's because I rely more on theater of the mind. Okay. So when I have a session going on, I have a book here. You know, this is out in front of me. I've got a bunch of ideas written out. I've got and I have, when I do the maps, I'm basically doing boxes like you're seeing here on the screen. Like, you know, I'm doing little box diagrams. I have an idea of what's in this area, blah, blah, blah. I'm not making a grid. I'm not drawing out every kind of aspect. I'm letting the players' imaginations fill that void. Okay? So I describe certain aspects in there, and they can place things using their own imagination in certain areas. It's totally cool. Don't worry about that, because if it doesn't serve any kind of other function tactically or anything like that, don't worry about that, because you don't need maps for everything. So, like I say, use a notebook, pen and paper, separate from the computer. That way, You're not going clack, 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 clack in the middle of the session and annoying your players' ears, my ears. I want my players to refrain from typing out stuff as much as possible. I mean, it's okay to type in a thing into their character sheet and all that stuff. That's no problem. I don't mind that. I don't want to annoy my players with my tickety tick 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 and abusing their ears. And once again, I use imagination, theater of the mind mostly. Okay, I'll bring up, if I bring up a map, it's only because they either have knowledge of it in general, and usually that map isn't to scale, or it's something that is visualized from an explorer's point of view, where he drew the map and now he hands it off to the players to say, okay, this is what I found in the area. And the players will look physically as their characters, player characters in the game, and we'll go, okay, this is cool. We know where this and this and this is, I guess. And then they'll tuck that away and they head off into the general direction and hopefully bump into the thing that was on the map. I don't want to use it as a grid for tokens to be running around on and stuff like that, because I hate doing that. And I think it takes away from the flow of the game. You don't want that. What the Game Master should control. Okay, you should be the arbiter of the rule system. All right. So the rules are all up to the Game Master, how they function and everything. You should be the narrator of the scene. You should also be the role of the NPCs. Or, as Shauner puts it, the characters of the Game Master. So everything you should be worried about is the function of the environment, how the traps, doors, locks, walls, items, books, whether all that works currently, if it pertains to the flavor of the scene. Okay? Now we get into how I prep and why I prep this way. Okay? So NPCs are your main focus. Okay? Because that's the only thing you have any real control over, is the non-player characters, or your Game Master PCs. Because if you go with Shauner's way Shauner explains how he views it, he has his own characters in there. He makes his own player characters, yet he is the Game Master. It's semantics, I guess, arguing semantics. But I just call them non-player characters because they're not played by the players. They're played by the Game Master, who is the arbiter of the rules. When I create NPCs, okay, and because this is your main control, besides the environment itself, your main control is going to be because of how you've developed these NPCs. You have to give them a function, whether they're a helper, guide, extra, monster, service provider, worker, overlord, bad guy, adversaries, allies, enemies, whatever they are. Give them a goal. What do they want to achieve? How will they achieve it? Okay? This is especially vital for any kind of monsters or any enemies, that sort of thing. You don't really have to worry about it with the workers and stuff like that, although you could have something like, the workers are part of a union and their union goals are this. Okay? But most of that stuff doesn't get uncovered unless the players kind of pry into that kind of aspect of the game. So the goals of the NPCs kind of keep you as a Game Master in check. of what these NPCs are doing, how they're doing it, what they're doing to achieve their goals, and how the players are interfering or helping or hindering in their goals. Okay, that's part of the gameplay here. Is that should be your focus. Create. Now once you have your NPCs all done, that's what that's what I work on first. NPCs, who are their enemies, what their plans are, and stuff like that. I don't put a timeline to when they are doing things or such. I kind of hint to myself what they are doing and stuff, and bring it in when it's time for something interesting to happen with the players. Okay, so I don't have, okay, well, the the big bad guy is going to send out his minions to go ahead and raid this this town. Okay, I decide when that's going to happen. It can be happening as the players approach that town. It could be happening when the players are in the town and they're in kind of like a boring situation, and I want it to perk up with something full of action. Or it could be in a background when the players leave, town gets raided, and then the players return and they see a burnt down town where it once stood. It's entirely up to you as the game master how you want this to play out. So this creates a lot of options for you as a GM to create interesting narrative going on. Create the opening scene for the PCs. So this is the very first session 1. How do you want this to open? So one of my rules, because it's kind of a pet peeve of my own, because I hate it, I hate watching it on other people's streams, the players should already be outfitted with their belongings at session 0. Session 0, they shouldn't be on a shopping spree. They shouldn't be going, oh, I need to get a donkey, or oh, I need to get some rope, or oh, I need to get some spikes, so I gotta go find this. Players should be outfitted at session 0 with everything that they have bought, and they are ready to go. If the players already know what the group is going to do as a group together, be it, okay, we're going to explore these old ancient ruins. That's going to be our session 0 idea. All right. That's what they're going to do. Or we're going to go ahead and, as a group, travel across as a merchant caravan, as guards for this merchant caravan. Or maybe it's our merchant caravan that we are in, and that's what we're going to play. Perfectly fine. Okay, you're going to go to parts unknown and do the Marco Polo kind of thing. So this will be cool. It gives me a lot of things to think about. But I expect that at session 0, you should be outfitted for that occasion. Ready? What you have decided you're going to be outfitted for. You've decided you're going to go dungeon dwelling. You should have your torches. You should have your oil. You should have all the things that you need for doing a dungeon delve. If you're traveling overland and planning to be a couple of weeks out, you should have your rations and all that stuff. You should have everything that you need for your adventure ready to go from the opening scene. So now we get to the notes of the opening scene itself. I want to create a bunch of notes about the vicinity. Not only about the opening scene, but the vicinity around it as well. Because you want the players to have an ability to kind of maybe look at this scene, be it like a ruin, and then think about how they're going to approach it. They could decide that they're going to go ahead and just enter in. They could decide that they're going to go ahead and go from the side. Or they might look at it and go, what's surrounding around us here? And see if we can use it to our own advantage. So this is where I come to my own personal rule of the game master's mouth. The words you say are your worst enemy. All right. So meaning that if you say that there is a swamp nearby or there is a tower nearby, you don't want to say that without having at least some sort of note of interest about it, 3 to 5 things that you can have written down about it so that you're kind of mentally prepared for them to go over there and encounter something there. Okay? And you want the players to discover these through their interactions, not through your exposition. Like you don't want to say, oh, well, there's a tower to in this area that's rumored, and give it a little bit of an idea of what could be there, or maybe some rumor that is false about it, and then let the player make it very brief, but let the players actually go there to encounter it and interact with it. Don't use exposition to explain every little tidbit of that detail, even though they haven't been there yet. Otherwise, there's no point in them even going to that area at all, because they'd be like, well, that's going to be too tough for us to encounter or whatever. Let them decide that themselves. It's got to be natural. It can't be a forced thing. You can't force the players into different paths. You got to give them options and let them decide on where they're going to go. But remember, whatever options you give them, your mouth is your worst enemy. So make sure you have something there. Otherwise, you're going to be saying, oh, well, there's this swamp over in the south. And then they go to the swamp out of curiosity because maybe that's how they're feeling at the time, and you don't have anything prepared. Well, that's going to suck for you, because suddenly you're scrambling to write down some notes about the area to make it kind of interesting, and you don't want to get caught kind of off your heels on that. So always do this: have vicinity notes, write down a few things of interest so that you're kind of set to be able to pull this one off with the session time that you have allotted. I usually have a fairly quick session, usually 2 hours, 2.5 hours at the most. Okay, your opening scene. This is for me. This how I usually go is usually a site where there'll be some action or conflict. It'd be a media ray at the entrance of a dungeon or at the approach of an encounter that may hone the player's skills or role-playing skills. So the opening scene, say in a science fiction adventure or something, is maybe they are approaching an unknown thing in space. And this unknown thing is some sort of alien space station as far as you as a game master has perceived it. The players are looking at this weird object in space. It's big, it's vast, it's monstrous, and they're like, "Okay, wow, this is interesting. Johnny, give me a scan on this thing." Player Johnny goes ahead and says, "Yeah, Captain, bringing it up. Captain, wow." Game Master says, well, you perceive from your sensor reading that there are certain strange, moving, what it perceives as life forms inside. They seem to be tiny, but then your sensors bleep up something of interest on the other side of the station. There is a starship attached to one of the little outlying parts of the station, and appears to be a human ship, possibly a scout ship by size. And then the player character Johnny can go ahead and start iterating what he's found for the rest of the crew members, to his captain and such. So, dungeons, same thing. Entrance of the dungeon, like I say, let them approach it, or whatever they're going to do naturally. And give them options in stuff, about the in the area as well, so that they're not just, okay, this is the only thing. You can have little side entrances and stuff like that, or secret entrances. Maybe they probe a little bit further and they find a secret entrance. I've had that happen recently in a tabletop game, on an entrance that I was not expecting them to find. And the only reason why they found it is because one of the characters decided that their race is going to be a gnome. And the gnomes have this ability to see unnatural things in the rock. So they found a secret entrance in to the kind of a makeshift fortress of the bandits. So it was an interesting little thing that happened. I wasn't planning on it. It just occurred naturally, and they went in through one of the outdoors, and what they encountered in there was a roper. So this was supposed to be more of the ending of the game session, as they're trying to get out of the dungeon, but in this case, they've entered through the back door, and it led to a very, very interesting encounter, which ended ultimately killing one of the NPCs. But they had they had something to tell. When they got back to town, they had a story to tell about that whole thing. So it was an interesting encounter, to say the least. So I didn't force this on them. They chose the path that they choose, and I'm just narrator. Like I say, I'm just narrating what comes up. I don't care about pathing. That's for the players to do. So we get to this here. The adventure and the story is the result of the interactions of the players in the opening scene or the NPCs. Of course, I'm talking about the very first, your very first session with them. Story is not something the game master is supposed to make. The story is what the players do with the interactions with NPCs, the environment, what they're seeing. That is the story. How they overcome it is the story. How they negotiate with it is the story. The game master should not worry about that. They just put things in place, the NPCs, their goals. Their goals are not stories, they're plots that the NPCs are trying to work with. They're trying to, they have a plot. Their plot is to do this, and then obtain great power in or whatever it is that they're doing. That is their kind of plot line of how they're going to be working within the function of your world. And the interaction of the players with that plot that the NPC has is what creates this whole story. Okay, the story, once again, is the natural interactions of the players and the result of their interactions. It is the thing the players recollect about the session after the session is over. It's like you're all done the session, you had a wild ride of whatever you did, and you sit back and go, whew, that was pretty cool what we did there. I thought that was neat the way that Johnny did the sensor thing and found that other the other ship on the other side, and then we explored that, and we discovered that half the crew in that scout ship were eaten by something, and then we discovered that, hey, there was comms going off, and there was somebody left in there, and they had found something very, very, very cool, some ancient alien artifact, but they were fighting off all these things, and they still could be alive in there, and blah blah blah, and that's part of the story and then we went in there, we just kicked ass on all the aliens and all whatever, or Johnny kind of had got a little bit stuck there, and I think he may be infested with something, but we got out of there alive. But or whatever happens. That's a story. The story comes after the session is all over. Okay, so we're gonna get into how I generally play now, because I've learned from lessons in the past. Especially with virtual tabletops, trying to prepare for everything, trying to make maps for all that stuff, trying to do tokens for everything, and then the players go elsewhere. Don't worry about that, because if you use your imagination or theater of the mind and you set your players up for that, it's a lot better. It's a lot easier to do. Now, keep in mind, I use a game system that sits well in the background. Okay, you don't. And this is where I get into some arguments with some players, which are not really arguments, but more my preferences, because I'm kind of voicing preferencing. I use a game system that is not something intensive like 5e or Pathfinder, because a lot of those rules in the game is pertaining to movement. You got you got these actions that you pull off. Pathfinder, you have 3 actions, and 5e you have these actions, full actions, and little half actions, and stuff like that. I forget what they're all called, but I don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. I just want the players to naturally do what they think their character can do within a set 5 seconds or 10 seconds of time. And I don't want the rules to be interfering in such ways that you have to calculate, the area of an explosion that occurs, blah blah blah, and everybody's worried about their own little special things, their own little special abilities that coincide with other people doing certain things, and there's a whole lot of different synergy kind of things that occur that you bring up, and it just becomes a out of character talk about what their characters can do on the paper. Now, you want a game system that's a lot more simpler with theater of the mind, because you want the brain to fill in a lot of the things that you as the game master say, and you want the game flow to be very natural. You don't want it to be chopped up by, okay, I need to call for this, and we need to do another roll for this, and then we have to roll for that, and you don't want to have the mechanics interfering with the flow of the game. Now, I always call for rolls when it's when there's a chance of things to fail or make things interesting, and I try to keep away from not saying, what do you do? after I do a little bit of a description. I don't say, what do you do? I do at certain times because my brain is like, I still got lizard brain of the old style of playing. I got to stop saying, what do you do? The players should take initiative for themselves to present their actions. Okay. This at first leads to a couple of awkward moments. Once the players have got themselves back into the routine of the play, that stops. So at first, you might find the players are waiting for you to say, what do you do? Or maybe even saying a name, saying Adamus, or something like that. You might want to say, well, the camera turns towards Adamus, and kind of Adamus can go ahead and suddenly say what he wants to do. That might be a little bit easier than saying, what do you do? It's more, it flows more than what do you do, I guess. Now, turn order is not rolled. I'll bring this up so you can see it. Turn order is not rolled unless it's for effect, like a Mexican standoff or a duel or a gunfight or something like that. You're going to be like, ching, ching, and then suddenly you eye up your opponent and you draw. Boom. You want the action to flow like that. You only want to roll when it's like, you got to make an initiative to see who goes first. And, it makes things interesting. You don't roll for, unnecessary things that should be already part of the character. For instance, their tracking ability and stuff like that. They know how to track. You shouldn't have to roll on an everyday tracking unless there is some sort of complication with it. Like the weather had turned sour overnight, so the tracks are obscured. Make a roll. That can be done. If it's something very simple, plain, bandits showed up. Looks like they raided this caravan. They took a bunch of people, and you see a bunch of footprints all over the place. Your ranger should be able to go, I will go ahead and investigate these tracks and see which distance they went off to. And you say, as game master, well, you derive that the trail heads to the northeast, and that is where it looks like they've taken their mounts and gotten up on horse and traveled that way. So the ranger can go ahead and take that information and do with it what he wants. You shouldn't have to make them roll unless there's some sort of duress happening. There's something happening. A boulder's coming down towards you, and you got to roll to see if you do this in time, or something like that. Those are things where you should make a roll and make it exciting. You want to have that excitement, okay? So, which brings us to this thing here, the very last part of this presentation. I want the session to be entertaining as possible without the game rules interfering with the flow of the role play. Okay? Keep in mind, I want to have my players stay in character as much as possible throughout the entire session. Okay? With streaming live, I don't want to bore the subscribers with rule mechanics or mind-numbing slow turn-by-turn progress up a corridor and players talking out of character. Okay, I watch my recorded streams and analyze what I can do better, which brings me on to my GM diary videos. One is kind of like this one, but more or less a focus on ideas on why I do things or how I should maybe do things better. Or I might have a little bit of note on maybe what a character did and what I should have done differently. and stuff like that, because I'm not perfect at my own craft, and I'm always I'm striving to improve, and that's what you should get off of off of watching my stuff, is that no, I'm not perfect at all. I'm not the best game master out there or whatever, but you can see from my description here is what I'm trying to achieve. I want it to be entertaining. I don't want you as the observer of the stream, as a subscriber, to go, oh my God, I don't want to watch this anymore. Okay. I want you to be entertained. And that goes hand in hand with a tabletop session as well, with just you and your friends or your players. I want you to make it as entertaining as possible. And that's why I'm here describing how I do things, and how I can possibly achieve it with as little problems as possible. The rule mechanics, once again, some are not good for doing the role playing, like your actual in character stuff, like playing your role, being in character, talking in character, doing things in character. Some have way too many mechanics and rules and cross-referencing of different pages and stuff like that. Those are, a lot of the games that you have, like 5e, Pathfinder, those are pretty much, and I know people are going to scream about this. I say these are board games. These are board game rules being applied to what you could use as a role-playing game. The reason why I say that is, take, for example, Gloomhaven. You can play Gloomhaven. Please go ahead and watch a couple of videos on Gloomhaven. You'll see what I mean. Gloomhaven is a board game. You play it on a grid. You have miniatures. You have miniatures of the enemies. You have turns. You have your initiative. You move on the board. You can go ahead and start doing role playing with your other players involved and say, talking character or whatever. But essentially what you have is a board game. It's sold to you as a board game. It's sold to you with maps. It's sold to you with miniatures. It's got some cards and stuff like that. That's the mechanics of the game, instead of using dice. So it is essentially a D&D game that you see today that is played instead with dice, with cards, and you can provide role play in it as well. However, when you're playing the game on the board, it's pretty much, you're just worrying about the rules, and the mechanics and all that stuff. And that's what causes things to become more of a board game. So you can argue all you want with me that D&D and Pathfinder are not are not board games, but they're exactly what a board game is, and they sell it as a board game. They sell it with the maps, they sell it with the miniatures, they sell everything to make it a board game. The rules are very board gamey as well. You move a certain amount of squares. You when you blast something with a fireball, there's a template that you have and such. You can play it as theater of the mind, but then you have to go ahead and take away a lot of that stuff. So you end up pretty much not playing the actual game that you have in front of you with the rules. You're playing a stripped down version of it, so you may as well be playing something with a simpler mechanics in order to make it work better for you. Traveler is what I use, because Traveler is a fairly easy system that sets in the background really nicely, and you don't have to worry about movement. You don't have to include the initiative and stuff like that. There are rules for all that stuff, but you can strip that away fairly easily and not worry about it. Monty Cook's cipher system. That includes Numenera, The Strange, Godforsaken, that we will be playing here very quickly. Sorry, folks, for the delay on that, but we, one of our players had an issue getting computers and stuff set up, and it was because there was things going around. He had to leave the apartment that he's in and all that stuff, and it was an inconvenience. So we delayed the session. So that's coming up next, this coming Sunday. So prepare for that. But Cypher, if you watch a Cypher game on like Monty Cook's channel, it is never a board game. You don't see a map being put forth in front of people. You don't see miniatures being moved around. They're sitting around the table and they're playing their characters in character, and they're role playing. That is how Cypher is set up. It's very easy. It's very fluid. It's in the background. You don't have to have it overriding a bunch of role play, chopping up your session from a role play perspective to out of character perspective. You don't have that in and out sort of thing. You're staying in character. When the game master uses the rules come down to basically only one whole chart, which is, it's just basically you put a difficulty towards something as a game master. It makes it very easy. You have a difficulty 1 to 10, 1 being super easy to do, to 10 being darn impossible for you to achieve. It's up to the players to go ahead and derive different ways to go ahead and bring down that difficulty. So they say what they're doing to bring down the difficulty. I'm going to go ahead and apply the rope, and we're going to climb this cliff. So I have climbing skills, so I should be able to do this, and with my rope and with my pitons and stuff like that, and they should be able to get up there. So I bring down the challenge rating from very hard to notch it down each time, and then I tell them to perform a roll. Boom, it either happens or doesn't happen, or there's a complication, or it happens but something else happens as well. So I have options there, and which is nice, and it's built for that kind of gameplay. It's not built to have you worrying about different charts and trying to look up things in your book all the time. It's all really easy, basic, and flows together very well with the theater of the mind aspect. The reason why I want to keep doing theater of the mind is to stay away from a lot of the prep of making maps, the prep of getting put stuff into the virtual tabletop. I'll occasionally bring up like an image or something like that in order to create a cohesive brain idea for the entire group to say, this is what we are all looking at, or something like that. That is all that I'm using a virtual tabletop for. And this way I get away from interfering with the gameplay with mechanics and movement, and you can use your imagination for all that stuff. So the underlying whole thing about this entire thing is, once again, the illusion of derailment. And you can't derail something that isn't on rails. Okay, so don't worry about providing a path of certain things. Let that organically occur. They will make their own path. They will decide on where they're going to go and how they're going to approach their goals as players to do what they're going to do. Don't worry about creating all these little scenes and stuff like that. The only thing you have to worry about is when they approach a new area. That is like an opening scene, so you can make elements visually in the theater of the mind for them to go off of. Let your players fill in all the blanks, because once again, I'm not writing down maps. I'm not making maps, intricate maps, showing where the pillars are and all that stuff. Let them, come up with the idea of what's in front of them, because a lot of the times I won't have those. They may say, okay, I'm using the pillars as a means to you know uh, create a defense for myself. So I'm going behind the pillars and I'm whizzing out arrows, and then I'm ducking back in, that sort of thing. That's totally okay. It doesn't matter where those pillars are. It's all in their brain that they're seeing it this way. Then the other players are also, creating the scene as they see it in their heads as well, with the collation of what the other players are doing. They're going, oh, he's using the pillar. I'm going to go ahead and just go for an all-out attack. Run in there with my sword and start swinging. And let that happen. You don't have to have maps and everything. Just let it play out. And describe the scene of blood flying through the air and stuff like that. That's your job as the GM to provide all those details of what's happening. Paths. Don't go with paths. Like I say, just don't do that. Your NPCs have their goals, so you know what they are doing. That's the only thing that is of any kind of path that you should be worrying about. But that's because you're using NPCs. It has nothing to do with the players, unless the players interfere with the path of which that NPC takes. Then it creates a conflict, and an interesting thing happens, be it with the NPCs, henchmen, or whatever you have going on, because you have created the NPCs, their organization, how they're going to achieve these goals. And that creates the interesting thing that's going to happen. And then, resulting of that encounter with the adversaries at hand, you can go from there to how the players decide, well, maybe we should explore these guys, figure out where they came from, and go ahead and figure out how to, it appears that they're trying to, get in on this action of this ruin and stuff, and find something in there that we're also trying to find. So let's, decide on what we're going to do. The players could continue on into the ruin and delving in there and finding out what it is that they're looking for. Maybe they found a note on one of the NPCs' dead bodies that says, you must go to the ruins of blah, blah, blah and find the thingamajig of death, or whatever it is that they're looking for. You introduce all these different aspects as a game master, and it's also up to the players to decide on how they want to proceed with all these things. Don't ever assume a path of anything, because all you're going to do is frustrate yourself. And you don't want to do that. You don't want to make your play as a game master a job. And because if you start doing that, you start losing the fun of it. So let go of the control. That's up to the players to decide on what they're going to do. Remember, you've already set the tone. You've already said, okay, we're getting rid of this idea of murder hobos by setting up the session 0. How they're going to approach what the original thing is, what they're doing, the goal of the group at hand. how they can talk amongst each other, how they want to achieve such a thing, you can give them little hints of things that you're going to put in there, or what, just to give the brain juices flowing, and they're going, okay, I can imagine what this session is going to be like, or what we're going to encounter and stuff, or hopefully encounter. You don't want to go ahead and blurt out a bunch of exposition on everything. You just want to get the ideas of what the players want to do in the session and start from there. Something simple. You don't need to have an elaborate plan put forth about what's going to occur and all this other stuff. You want that to happen organically, naturally, with what the players do and not with what the game master wants to do. Your NPCs are the only thing you can control. The area, the environment is the only thing you control. The aspects of the mechanics of how that trap works, how that door works, how the halls are in the area, how the starship engine functions, how the characters transfer themselves from one system to another. That's all up to you as the game. That's your control as the game master. Those are the only things you should be controlling. How the players play and develop and go their own way is up to the players. That's my philosophy in behind everything. And if you follow this, you should be able to have some pretty good success at creating your game sessions and having the players entertained within the game and not feeling like they've been restrained, and always strive to perfect it. Always keep on going back to your session and thinking and writing down notes on what you think you should have done different. Okay, there's nothing you can do about it, but keep in mind, it could be a note that could come in very important later on if something similar happens again. Improve it. Always strive for improving yourself in the game, and eventually you're going to go ahead and create a style of your gaming, and the players will know what to expect. And your players, if they are reoccurring, as players within your game, as different characters, they will know what you're all about as a game master, and they'll know how to play. And sometimes, the players will, take off and do something else with another game master and stuff, and play their own games with other people. And when then they come back, they might end up bringing back some of the habits that they've gotten from the other games, and they'll have to go ahead and reset their brains back into how they play in your game. Don't particularly worry about that. It does happen, but eventually they get back into the routine of how they should play in your game once again. So it's always good to have a little pre thing in the beginning of your session. Go over the rules once again of your session 0, and have everybody's brains back into how you play once again in your game sessions. That should help in alleviating a lot of pain and anguish and just frustration as the game master, because you don't want that. You want to have it flowing nice. Don't worry about the control. Let the players do what they need to do in order to succeed in the thing that they are trying to do. And you decide on whether or not it's a fail or success, or it's by the rolls of the dice, and have a lot of fun with that. So, anyways, that is it for my discussion. Over an hour. Holy moly. But hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. RPG Elite, check out his channel. I have a link underneath in my description. And he's got some good insight in a lot of his stuff. But once again, like I say, I have a different way of going about it. And, he can watch this and take from it what he wants. I'm always watching his videos and coming up with, hey, that's a good idea, or whatever, and deciding to use it in my own sessions as well. So with all these people that you're watching, and getting some good ideas from, just take the best things that you can from each one. You might not agree with a lot of stuff that I say here, which is fine. Play the game that you wish to play it the best way that you possibly can, and take all the information that you can from all these game masters that have played for eons and eons, and use the best parts of what you think you can use from them. That's all I can pretty much say about that. So if you think this is cool enough to follow and subscribe to me. Subscribe, I tell you. It's just down there. Just hit subscribe. Just do it.